The most dreaded time to speak is after the lunch slot, where tummies are full and minds are drifting. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jeevan Lewis, student counselor in the Department of Student Affairs. Hereby welcomes all of you to the post-lunch noon session. I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Vinod C. Nayak, Professor, Department of Forensic Medicine, as well as Coordinator Center for Clinical and Innovative Forensics, KMC, Manipal. I request our Director, Dr. Geeta Maya, to escort the guest to the dais. I also request Director Madam to welcome the guest florally. It's my privilege to introduce Dr. Vinod C. Nayak to the gathering. Dr. Vinod C. Nayak has completed his MBBS from Kasturba Medical College, KMC, Mangalore, MD in Forensics from KMC, Manipal, and has been a faculty in KMC for more than 16 years. He is the former president of the Karnataka Medico Legal Society and also a member of the National Panel for Framing Medico-Legal Guidelines for Institutional Healthcare in India. In addition, he is a member of the Executive Committee of Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences for the CBME curriculum. He has more than 150 indexed international and national publications to his credit. He is also the peer reviewer for the International Journal of Forensic and Legal Medicine, published by Elsevier and PLOS ONE. He is actively involved in training the law enforcement agencies, including the police and the judiciary at regional, state, and national levels. With this brief introduction, I now request Dr. Vinod C. Nayak to take over the session. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for the very gracious introduction. I think sometimes I always say when I get such an introduction that you should be taking your wives along with you. They usually think you're useless. This helps. I think he's already told, it's very difficult to talk when tummies are full and, a lot of payasa has gone inside. I just happened to see what was for lunch. The first thing I saw was payasa. And I met Dr. Varalakshmi and Madam is still there. And Dr. Shobha Kamath. Shobha Kamath, I think, has already slept outside. And Madam is, I think, on the way to get some good sleep. So yeah, this is what it is. So before you sleep off, I just want to, could you all just stand up for a second? If it is all right with you guys. I know it's difficult. Put some effort. Thank you so much. Can you just... Don't hit the person at the side. See, Madam has already given one to Praveen there. Good. Thank you so much. So I think that will rejuvenate you guys for the rest of the session. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, Ankur. I think he's my postgraduate. He has, he wants to say something. So,
sir, yesterday I was having a rave party and that time police caught me. They took me to the police station. A big issue happened, then I called my dad and then I finally got released today. So what should I do now, sir?
So you are released. Okay. Maybe you have to go and report to them. Maybe meanwhile you can inform your parents also.
Pointer will work with them.
Okay, dad also there.
Yeah,
Maybe you have to go and explain what has happened. And maybe you have to promise them that you will not repeat it. So
Yeah, I think you can go and report to the police station.
That's the easiest thing to do.
Huh?
The police have caught him. He was in a rave party last night. Police caught him, and with great difficulty he has managed to come out for a day. He has to go back again now. He's waiting here. He doesn't know what to do. So he's come to this hall in order to get some answers as to what's to be done now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. So go to lawyer. Nakul Shetty says go to the police, though you already come from the police. So what can be done in such situations? I mean, it's a pretty normal situation, right? I mean, in the sense that we come across during our during our practices, or whenever we're speaking to our students or anybody for that matter, that they would have experienced such a situation wherein they would have been apprehended while they were partying. Okay? There would be some 100, 125 people, but then they would have been caught. What is their liability? Is everyone liable? Is he the only person liable because he was caught? What did they confiscate? There are a lot of queries to be answered, isn't it?
Ma'am, day before yesterday, I was relaxing at my house. Then my friend came to visit me, and he had a big bag of weed. And that time only police came and they caught me, ma'am. What should be done now?
I'm also not aware.
Yes, madam. He says he was sleeping peacefully in his house. Suddenly his friend came to his house with the bag of weed. What is weed? Weed is something which we use in the general terms, right? Weed killers, grass, weed. You need to know these things because you will come across these issues a lot many times. So he was sitting peacefully, he was sleeping peacefully at his house. His friend came to his house with the bag of weed. And unfortunately or fortunately, don't know, that time only police landed up. I'm telling you, that friend must have tipped them, okay? So, police come that time only. And he is caught. It is his house. What is his liability? Fantastic question, madam. He was sleeping very peacefully. These friends know these days, they have their own close friends. I've seen many students, they have their own keys. Friends have their keys to their apartments. He goes in, comes out. He doesn't know what he has planted. This person doesn't know what he has. This is a real case scenario. Okay? Let me tell you that as well. This is a real case scenario. So, he entered. Okay? He had his keys. One flat, 4 keys will be there with 4 different people here. Let us assume that the house door was open, trusting that no thief will come inside or whatever it is. But he has come. He has come with a bag of weed and he has placed it there. And at that point of time, police has come. Now the issue is, what is his liability? Is he liable or not? What is the way forward? Tomorrow, if you encounter such a situation, I'm sure many of us, as wardens, as student, people who deal with students, we might have come across some situations like this, isn't it? Many a time. What do we do? What is the way forward? Police only have come. Police are there. Go with the police and explain. Okay. Yes. True.
They have not done anything. He will be having plenty confidence to explain. Probably some CC cameras might be. If he is lucky,
Yes.
somewhere surroundings.
Good. This is normal understanding, isn't it? Good. This is normal understanding. Does the law say anything about it? How do we get away or come out of this situation? Or are we really caught in the web of law? What is on paper regarding these situations? What has happened? What has come out as judgments when it comes to these such sort of issues?
Sir, it was a usual day, and like I love smoking weed. So after work, I went back home, and for my personal consumption only, I have 2 grams of weed, and I like smoking weed. Like 2 grams were with me. That time only police came, sir, and then they caught me again. What should be done now, sir?
He's got some affinity with the police. Can't help it.
Well, you will have to sort it by some mechanism. Because once you are caught, there are rules which are applicable. So, you are caught with the weed.
2 grams, sir, for personal consumption.
I think that must be within the limits. I'm not very sure, but
I can't hear you. You just lower.
that must be within the limits. 2 grams.
Little 1 second you can.
Oh, sorry, that must be within the limits. 2 grams.
Okay. Good. So the question was, he was carrying 2 grams of ganja with him and he was smoking. At that point of time, unfortunately, in his case, police always lands up at the wrong time only. Police caught him smoking ganja. He had 2 grams of ganja with him. What is the way forward? Now, why I am saying all these things is, these are very practical situations which arise, and we need to know what are the legalities associated with these issues. When we encounter these issues tomorrow, what are the legalities involved? What if he has been caught with 2 grams? What if he has been caught with 50 grams? What if he has been caught with 100 grams? What will be his liability? What if he was caught with the 2 grams of some other drug? And another issue is, he very categorically said that it is for personal consumption. Personal consumption. He was not caught peddling. He was not caught selling. Right? He was caught with 2 grams of ganja, smoking it. Not that it's a lesser offense, but what I'm trying to say is, what are the legalities associated with these different kinds of situations? That is something we need to understand, because this TOT needs to be holistic, as Madam has planned it. And when it needs to become holistic, you also need to know what are the legalities associated with it. I'm sure many of the speakers would have spoken about the physical aspects of drug abuse, how to deal with situations concerning drug abuse, how to get students out of drug abuse, how to address the problems of students, children, youth basically, when it comes to drug abuse. So a pinch of legalities also must be added to this, so that it becomes complete, so that at any given point of time you have some idea as to what law says about these situations, right? So that is basically the purpose, because I'll just briefly go through some of the legal aspects associated with drug abuse. I must thank Madam once again for giving me an opportunity here. It's a wonderful social initiative, definitely, because this is such a noble initiative taken up by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. And we are fortunate that we are able to contribute in some way or the other to this very noble cause. So going forward, I think we'll talk very briefly about what constitutes, what and all constitute some of the legal aspects of drug abuse. All right? Okay. Coming to, I think this must have already been spoken about by the previous speakers. Why exactly people take up to drugs? It's known, it's no secret, or people have already spoken about it. But one of the main reasons, as we know, adolescence, as we know, is a time when everybody experiments with drugs, new things, not only drugs, new things in life. They want to see what will happen if they're very curious about everything, isn't it? And these are the youth who are going to shape the moral, social fabric of the nation tomorrow. They refuse to be, they don't want to be left alone in anything. But they fall prey to drug abuse. And one of the very, very important reasons, as they might have already told, is what? Peer pressure. Peer pressure, right? A very recent survey, in fact, when I went through it, almost 80 to 90% of the candidates who fall prey to this menace of drug abuse have reported that the drugs were given to them first time by somebody they knew. A friend, a senior, a colleague. They want to feel in the group. They want to fit in. That is the kind of peer pressure that our students, anybody for that matter, are facing. So peer pressure is definitely one of the most important reasons why students fall prey to this. What are the other reasons? Students want to feel like grown-ups, isn't it? Students feel it is very exciting to feel like a grown-up. Even as students, even as teenagers, they want to feel like they are grown-ups. It's very exciting, they feel. Grown-ups drink, grown-ups smoke. So why can't we smoke? Rebellion, they have that rebellious sort of attitude. They rebel against almost anything and everything. At that age, we've all gone through that phase, isn't it? And different kinds of rebels will be there, in fact, even in that segment. Some people adopt alcohol as one of the means because it lowers their inhibitions. I'll go through alcohol in the future slides. It releases their inhibitions. Some people may go in for that. Some people may go in for hallucinogens. They want to go into a more idealistic sort of world. Different kind of people with different kind of personalities may adopt different kinds of drugs, usually starting with the gateway, the so-called gateway drugs leading to harder ones. And then, of course, you have influence, right? You have a whole lot of influence happening, be it media, TV shows. Nowadays, there is no dearth of social media. There is so much of influence. You should be really careful about what your son or daughter is looking into. It's a very important aspect. There is so much of influence. The people they adore, people they idolize, when they see them doing such sort of things, they feel it is okay to do it. It only gives them more, that sort of permission sort of thing to have, to go ahead and do it. They seem to look cool. When you go to Inox, or nowadays on TV as well, the moment Rahul Dravid comes, you look that way. But if Shah Rukh Khan comes with a cigarette, You'll tend to look at him. A cigarette in my hand, I felt like a man. There's that adage as well. We see Akshay Kumar coming in, Tere pocket mein kya hai? So media also influences a lot. So you need to be really careful about what are we providing to the next generation, isn't it? So that is also something which can add on to the already existing reasons that we've already spoken about. So all these things slowly but surely lead a person. Of course, the personality, the cultural scenarios, everything matter a lot. When everything is a fit, that person goes into what is called an abuse habit. He starts off usually with the gateway, the so-called gateway drugs, cigarettes, alcohol, and then it can proceed on to something more sinister, more harder. What is this? What is this that this person is doing here? Any idea what he's doing here? Very good. Very, very good. Very good. So what is he doing? Yeah. This is called snorting. This is called snorting. And this is cocaine. Right? The so-called rich man's drug. The dreaded drug. This is snorting. I mean, being a forensic expert is part of my job. I look at so many cases and see so many young years wasted away in smoke. And in fact, we've seen people, you wouldn't believe it, we've seen people without the nasal septum. Can you even believe that? You know, there is something called as a nasal septum in between the two nostrils, right? It's cartilaginous. When you snort cocaine, it tends to erode that septum. And chronic addicts, the septum gets eroded and corroded and eroded and corroded. Ultimately, there is no septum only. The nostril is one single passage, the nose. Can you just imagine? What I want to tell you is, this is the kind of devastation that drugs can bring about. It's just a local thing I'm talking about. Devastation can be plentiful, much more. Systemic problems in chronic addiction, other diseases linked, familial problems because of this. So devastation is huge. You must have already heard about all these things from other speakers. They get into harder drugs, even harder drugs. What is this? What do you think is this? The middle one is crocin, the top one is anisin. Shweta madam, Nakul has answered one question already. It's your duty now. I can ask anybody a question in this audience except for Shobha Kamath madam. Because she is my teacher. What is this? Exactly. This is, Nakul will tell you later. What is this? This is nothing but, these are ecstasy pills. These are ecstasy pills. Very commonly found now. It just looks like, unless that typical shape of some of the triangular shape or some other shape like a crown and all that. If not for those shapes, the other tablets that you see are just like any other medications. Isn't it? It looks like a plain paracetamol tablets, and by now everybody would know what is paracetamol. Even if you have not taken anything, I'm sure during vaccination time you would have got 2 paracetamols. So, it's nothing but looks like medication. These are ecstasies. So easily transportable, so easily trafficable, isn't it? So they get into harder, even harder drugs, and ultimately they are at crossroads. They are at the crossroads. They have so much of variety at their disposal. They really do not know which way to take, and they end up going in one or the other direction to a point from where coming back may sometimes not be possible. So our intervention should be placed much before we reach that particular stage, that particular point, from where the point of no return, as we call it. So that the individual is able to achieve his or her full potential, isn't it? That's where our role lies. That is something which we need to remember before this point is reached, much ahead, in fact. This point, wherein they become a concoction of drugs, a combination, a concoction, a mixture, from where it is very, very difficult sometimes to get back. So before getting into the gist of the legal aspect, I would just like to make one mention of this one slide dedicated for this, because this is a very important geographic location which I always make a mention of. This location is called the Golden Crescent and the area of the Golden Triangle. These two areas, one of the areas located in between Afghanistan, Iran and Pakistan. The Golden Crescent, the mountainous peripheries, they define that crescent. They make that crescent-shaped area. Okay? And then the other area is known as the area of the Golden Triangle, which overlaps the mountains of the 4 countries of Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam and Thailand. Why am I mentioning these regions? These are the 2 regions, if you can see it clearly. Why am I mentioning it? Because these are the areas where maximum illicit opium trafficking happens. And it's our predicament, the situation is our luck, or whatever you call it. Look at India. It is wedged right in between these 2 areas. It is sandwiched in between these 2 areas. So whatever illicit trafficking happens here, invariably there is a leakage onto Indian region. And that's where the maximum, the quantity or influx of drugs of abuse happens, because of the leakage between illicit trafficking happening between these 2 areas. So that is why I just made a mention of these 2 areas, so that you have an idea as to where this happens. Of course, there has been a rise of local hubs all over India. There is no doubt about it. But these are the 2 areas where maximum, especially Afghanistan, if you have nowadays it's in news because of whatever is happening. But opium production is huge. And that's one of the major sources of revenue, in fact. So that's something, a good to know thing, okay? Not a must to know thing. So basically, the influx due to leakage happening here, plus the local rise of hubs within India, wherein illicit production happens, leading to illicit trafficking, leading to illicit consumption. all of this ultimately results in increase in substance abuse, right? It's not very uncommon for you to have gone through these things in the newspapers or TV or whatever, social media, isn't it? You would have seen such news day in and day out happening. Students having been, apprehended. Just now, Ankur was speaking about situations like this. NCB busts global drug racket operating via darknet, 8 held. Wherever this has happened, this has become a very, very common source for people trying to get stuff. And what is this? What do I mean by darknet? It's become very common because of, anybody has an idea what is the darknet? Just randomly. Again, it's a good to know thing. Huh? Yes. The darknet is it's like any of, we do online shopping, right? We do online shopping from Amazon, we do online shopping from, ladies might be. It's just like any other online shopping site with a subtle difference. The darknet is a place preferred because, as Sir said, anonymity is maintained. Very difficult to trace. The drugs come to the doorstep by courier. We come across several situations wherein wrong addresses are given. If Nakul has bought the drugs, he gives my address. He gives my address. And when it reaches the courier office, they keep track of it, okay? That is a talent. They keep track of where, nowadays you can keep track also easily, but then they do it precisely. When it reaches the courier office, Nakul goes as me and collects it from there and goes away. If the parcel is caught by the police, I am behind bars. If the parcel is not caught, he will enjoy. As simple as that. It's a very, very preferred way of obtaining substances of abuse. The darknet has really took everyone by storm, in fact. So, this is a new thing that is, it's not new anymore. It is, even the darknet is from quite some time. We're taking time to get used to the fact that it is really being used rampantly. And police are also having a great difficulty to nab people who are using it. So that is something which needs to be remembered. Okay? And of course, these people are oblivious to the situation. They really do not know what lies ahead for them, what is in store for them. They do not know how seriously law will take it, what shape their lives are going to take in future if they are nabbed by law, especially students who may need to finish their future studies, who may need to go abroad, who may have so many dreams, isn't it? That's what they're all here for. They have absolutely no idea where they're heading. And they end up here. So, in order to, that is the reason we need to know a little bit about law, at least a little bit about law, so that we know what lies in store, we know what are the situations and how they can be handled. So, in order to look at all of these, there is I'll just go briefly through that act actually, which deals with everything related to drug abuse in India. The A to Z of drug abuse, basically. Earlier, there were not many laws with relation to substance abuse. There were a few acts. In fact, cannabis was very much legal. But then, in 1961, there was a US convention on drugs, from where it all started off. And then, with increased international pressure and all of that, the next 2 decades were spent like that. And in the mid-80s, 1985 to be precise, this act was passed, which deals with almost everything related to drug abuse. It's very difficult to encounter a situation which is not part of that act. It was passed in 1985 and it is called as the NDPS Act, or the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act. There were a few acts earlier, central acts like the Opium Act, the Dangerous Drugs Act, with quite a bit of drawbacks. It's not addressing everything under one sort of legislation. So, this act, it rectified many deficiencies in the previous acts, and it dealt with prohibition, control, regulation of all operations related to narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances, and also provided a licensing system. That was very important. See, drugs have some beneficial uses also, isn't it? Medicinal uses. So many substances which can be addictive are used as medications as well. So, in order to have the beneficial effects you need to grow them, isn't it? So, this act also made a system of licensing. Who can grow, where to grow, how much can be grown, under whose supervision can it be grown, everything. It's a very big act, in fact. I cannot go through all the aspects of the NDPS Act. I will just briefly mention about some of the points which I felt are relevant to the audience going forward as a trainer, as somebody who will be dealing with drug abuse. So, some of the points of this particular act, I will just discuss. This is the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act. Okay, it was passed in 1985. It's already amended 3 times now. In 1988, 2001 and 2014, in fact. Not a major change has been made, but there have been subtle changes made over the 3 decades or more in these 3 amendments. Okay? So, you can briefly go through some points which are probably relevant from your point of view. It consists of 5 chapters. I won't go into the details of everything. There are some points in the preliminary chapter itself which are relevant and important. And then some points in the 4th chapter regarding offenses and penalties, which I felt you also must know. All right? So, basically the objectives of the Act are prohibiting, controlling, regulating all operations relating to narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. Okay? Regulating the operations. Operations means everything. It could be consumption, it could be production, it could be transportation, it could be anything related also. You need not be related to drug abuse. Even if you have, say, rented your apartment for drug storage purpose or whatever it is, even that has been addressed. If you have financed somebody, even that has been addressed. If you have hoarded anything, It could be for a reason. Cough syrups, for example. Even such situations have been addressed. So, by operations, it encompasses almost anything and everything. And of course, providing a license system. And one of the important things of this act is that it gives a list of substances. It gives a list of substances which are classified as narcotics and psychotropic substances. That is also important for you to, you cannot go through the entire, it's a huge list. Based on the international list, in fact. It's a huge list. But it consists of all the substances. It's very, again, as I said, people are coming up with newer things, newer combinations and all of that. But invariably, any one part of that composition also will be included somewhere in the list. So, it's a very comprehensive list. And the central government is empowered to amend the list of psychotropic substances at any given point of time. For example, ketamine was very recently added, I think as early as 2011 or 2012 or something. Tramadol was very recently added to that list. So, as and when they feel that a substance needs to be added to the list or probably deleted from the list, they can go ahead. They are empowered to do that. Okay, that is something which needs to be remembered. Okay, so let's go ahead with what constitutes that act very briefly. All right. First of all, the first chapter consists of definitions, and the first drug that has been defined is the most commonly abused, as I can call it, after tobacco probably and alcohol probably, is what? Cannabis. Right? Cannabis. I don't think there's anybody who has not heard of cannabis. Right? Cannabis, ganja, charas, hashish. These are terms which are very commonly, definitely may not have seen it, but you would definitely have heard about it. Afim. Right? So cannabis, what does the act say? We know, avanu ganja mara avanu, ganja master mara avanu. What does the act say? What does law say? Law says cannabis means, first of all, charas. Okay? And what is charas? It's obtained from the cannabis plant. Cannabis or ganja is basically a plant. Okay, I'll show you the picture in the next slide. It's basically a plant from which charas is obtained. Okay? Charas is obtained. There are other preparations also, like hashish, hashish oil. All these are obtained from the cannabis plant. Okay? Charas is obtained from a dead cannabis plant, basically. The flowering tops are crushed between the palms and charas is produced actually. So, the act defines cannabis means 1. Charas, hashish oil, then B. Ganja. Ganja is probably more commonly spoken about when we talk about drugs. Very commonly spoken about, right? Ganja, we use the word. So, what is ganja? What is ganja? Anybody? Yes, Shobha madam. What is ganja? No, there are two Shobhas, madam. Sorry. Sorry. Shobha Irappa, madam. Yes. See, the coincidences both are sitting together. That's called coincidence. No, she has absolutely no idea about what ganja is. What is ganja? I mean, we speak about it day in and day out. What is ganja? Ganja only. So, what is ganja? Is it a leaf? Is it a flower? Is it a stem? Is it a Huh? It is flower. See, some say flower. That's why I asked. Some say flower, some say leaf, some say stem, some say root. What is ganja? These are flowering or fruiting tops of the cannabis plant. Okay? Technically, it is nothing but the flowering or the fruiting tops of the cannabis plant. That is actually, ganja means that, but we tend to use the word ganja loosely for anything and everything. Actually, ganja means that. And legally also, that is what is prohibited. Remember that. Many will not know this. If you, as madam said, if you take a ganja leaf and you have 100 kilograms of ganja leaf in your possession, are you liable? That is why I brought up this topic, because by law, the seeds and the leaves, when not accompanied by the tops, are not illegal. What is illegal is the flowering or the fruiting tops. I asked her a question, she ran away. So it is that what is illegal. That is something that you need to know. I'll ask you another question. What is bhang? Bhang is common, no? I mean, many, you might have seen in movies, you might have seen in Amitabh Bachchan plays Holi with bhang only always. Huh? Liquid form of cannabis. Good. Madam also says liquid form of cannabis. Very good. Is it right? Sridhar Rai. Gotiji. Is it true? Liquid form of cannabis? Bhang. You sometimes eat, you can drink. Holi, it is used rampantly. Huh? See? He knows the place also. Mangalore Car Street, he says, left, right and center. Vokli. So what is bhang? As madam said, it can be in liquid form. It need not be in liquid form. We are more used to seeing it in liquid form. It is nothing but a preparation made out of the seeds and the leaves of the cannabis plant. And that is the reason it is not illegal. How do you think otherwise anybody can be using it so rampantly for religious purposes, for Holi, for all of that? Because as per law, the seeds and the leaves are not illegal. The flowering or the fruiting tops are illegal. That is why some states have come out with prohibitory orders. Some states have come out with, not all states, some of the states have Assam, Mumbai, Maharashtra, they have come up with some acts which specifically control this substance. Whereas the general law, NDPS, does not encompass this in specific. Okay, that is something which I wanted to make known. Okay, so this is what is ganja. Ganja, flowering or fruiting tops of the cannabis plant, is definitely illegal as per the NDPS Act. And charas. Okay, charas also. Okay, recently I think there was where was that? One major racket was busted, no? Charas racket. Chennai, I think. Tamil Nadu. Chennai, I think it was a major, they were illicitly trafficking charas inside soft toys. I remember, inside soft toys. So, charas is, illicit trafficking is rampant, definitely illegal. Okay? As Madam said, leaf, cannabis. The second picture is the preparation, charas. This is charas. Cannabis leaf. This I think many would have seen. Many people have this on their t-shirts, in fact. It's a in thing, as per many, right? What is this? This looks like whatever. Some may think it is alcohol, some may think it is honey, hashish oil, hash oil. Okay? Right. So next coming to, what is this? Cocaine. Okay? Cocaine. Cocaine is obtained from the coca leaf. Okay? Erythroxylon coca is the plant. Like cannabis is a plant, cocaine is also obtained from a plant. Vegetarian. Okay? So, from the coca plant, cocaine is obtained. So, cocaine can be crude cocaine or pure cocaine. Pure cocaine is the methyl ester of the benzoyl guanine, chemically speaking. But crude cocaine, also called as the coca paste sometimes, can be smoked. It is called as the poor man's drug because crude cocaine is much cheaper when compared to the purer forms of cocaine. Pure cocaine is really, really expensive. It's a rich man's drug, in fact. But crude cocaine is much cheaper, and cheaper means more harmful also, there's no doubt about it. And eggonin is one of the derivatives. It's both a metabolite and a precursor of cocaine, in fact. So these are the substances again mentioned in the Act. Okay? So cannabis, cocaine, and that is a white powder is the pure form of cocaine, and that is a plant actually. Okay? And if you look at the manufacturing of cocaine, you will go mad. The coca leaf is spread, gasoline or kerosene is poured over it, from which certain other processes, using some other process in addition to this, cocaine is extracted. So you can just imagine the kind of deleterious effect it can have on the health. In places like Colombia and all, it is so much of gasoline or kerosene is stolen, in fact, for preparation of cocaine. And the rest of it is thrown into rivers, and so the kind of environment hazards also it is associated with this so much. So cocaine production is not easy, but it is still very, very lucrative. So crude cocaine and the purer form of cocaine also, as per the Act, is illegal. Okay? Right. Opium. Cannabis over, cocaine over, opium. Opium. What is opium? See, this is opium. Plenty in that Golden Crescent area. Plenty of it is grown. This is the unripe, it is also called as poppy. What paisa you had today? Huh? Kaskasa? Why do you feel sleepy after eating khaskhas paisa? Khaskhas is nothing but a derivative of opium. Really? It's a condiment, right? It's a derivative. of opium, which is used in paisa. Yeah. See, madam is already, that is, you get a good sleep, that's why. If paisa is there, I will sleep, they say. So, opium is, these are the unripe capsules of opium. Papaver somniferum is the plant. And what they do, what is that white liquid? From the unripe capsules, what they do is, on those capsules, they make incisions, serial incisions. And from those incisions, this white latex oozes out. And that is collected from which afim or opium is made. Only unripe capsules are used for this purpose. So that's a very, very lucrative, again, those regions which I mentioned earlier, the Golden Crescent, the Golden Triangle, a lot of illicit trafficking, a lot of illicit production and cultivation happens of basically opium. Alright? So opium, it is very clearly mentioned in the law, it is illegal. So cannabis, cocaine, opium. Right? And under opium also, there are plenty of derivatives of opium. One very common derivative, I am sure everybody would have heard. It's a very common derivative which has a lot of addictive potential. What is that? Morphine. Right? Morphine. I just spoke about cough syrup. What does cough syrup contain? Codeine, thebaine. So morphine, codeine are all derivatives of opium. So all of opium and all of its derivatives have been very, very clearly mentioned. Okay? So this is nothing but opium. Morphine earlier, heroin later stages. Because morphine is a very old, it's been abused from quite some time. So from morphine, heroin was discovered by people as a substitute for morphine. They were very happy when heroin was discovered because they thought that it was a cure for morphine addiction. They thought heroin will not be addictive. If you give heroin, you can wean the person away from morphine. But heroin turned out to be more addictive and harmful than morphine. That's why the name heroin, it was considered a heroic cure for morphine. That's why it is called heroin, not heroin. So heroin ultimately proved to be worse than morphine. So heroin is also included. Okay? And then all of these substances were there mentioned as narcotics under the NDPS Act. And then it has a huge list of psychotropic substances. This is just some of the names that I mentioned. Huge list is there. And each of these, so you can see diazepam, ketamine, amphetamine, these are all medications. Diazepam you use left, right and center, right? Amphetamines as antidepressants. Anesthetics, ketamine. So these are all medications which are still on the list of psychotropic substances. Right? So there's a huge, huge list. And each of these medications, each of these narcotics or psychotropic substances, believe me, each one of them will have 10 slang names. White lily, lotus, pink lady, snow. Like weed. Weed is more commoner. We get to listen very commonly, weed. But there are names. We came out from forensic this thing actually. We came out with the book. It was a Ruddy Reckoner. We've given it to all police stations in the district. Every police station has one book now. Because they were telling us we really do not know what it means. We intercept messages sometimes. When we catch somebody, they tell us they have, they have Snow White. We really do not know what it means. So we came out with the Ruddy Reckoner, which contains nearly 100,000 names. Last year we in fact, I think International Day, that drug abuse, along with student affairs, we got it released. In fact, it was a very good handbook, very useful handbook. You get to know what that drug is. Of course, once that book, if they see, they will change the slang name. It's not too difficult for that. But each single drug will have 10 different slang names. Right, so this is basically the gist of the what definitions, what drugs it mentions as being illegal, and the fact that there is a huge list of almost all drugs under the sun which have addictive potential, which is very clearly mentioned in the Act. Okay, so and these are some of the things. I will not go into the detail what the Act contains. It has all of this. It mentions all of this. The government can take measures. It can appoint special officers. There is a consultative committee. There is a national fund for control of drug abuse. All these activities which are happening, Nasha Mukt Abhiyans and all that, the fund is utilized for such activities, for prevention, for rehabilitation of addicts, for all these things. This fund is utilized by the government, okay, in order to curb the menace. So I won't go into the details of all of this, okay? Yeah. See, there is a consultative committee that can be formed under the NDPS Act. The National Fund for Control of Drug Abuse is used for combating illicit trafficking, controlling the abuse, identifying, rehabilitating addicts, educating public against drug abuse, organizing TOTs, right? Yeah. Basically dealing with prohibition, control and regulation. And also licensing, fix the limits and licenses from time to time. Yeah, this is important, okay? So I just went through some of the other aspects of the Act which are not relevant especially between 2 and 3, not at all relevant, okay? So punishment is something that I felt you have to know. What is the sort of punishment that the Act advocates? Anyone who contravenes the NDPS Act will face punishment based on the quantity of the banned substance. That is why Ankur was very categorical when he asked Dr. Yogesh, 2 grams, 2 grams, 2 grams, right? What is the punishment prescribed as per the NDPS? When the contravention involves a small quantity, the punishment is rigorous imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year, or, that or is the most important word in the entire statement, or, with a fine which may extend to so many rupees, 10,000 rupees. Okay? If you look at the next statement now, where the contravention involves a quantity lesser than commercial quantity but greater than small quantity, which means it's an intermediate quantity. See, there are 3 types of quantities. Small quantity, I will tell you in the next slide what constitutes small quantity and commercial quantity, okay? You may not be knowing now, you may be a little confused. But small quantity, intermediate quantity and commercial quantities are the 3 types of quantities which are described categorically in the NDPS Act. Okay? So the first statement says small quantity, term for 1 year or fine. See the second statement. When it involves intermediate quantity, term which may extend to 10 years, there is no or there. There is and there. So which means there is no scope for fine at all. That is how most of the people we come across who get caught, that is how, this is the clause due to which they are able to get out of law's clutches. Because there is a scope for getting out with fine. Of course, there are certain other things to be fulfilled, which I will talk about. With fine, without being imprisoned, when it involves small quantity only, If somebody is caught with an intermediate or a commercial quantity, it does not hold good. Okay? Of course, when it is a commercial quantity, it's huge. Okay? 10 to 20 years and fine, commercial quantity, fine is, they're not much bothered about the fine. It's the imprisonment that is more, taxing. So, these are some of the punishments which are mentioned categorically in the NDPS Act. Most of the times we deal with small quantity cases, right? In and around when we have come across cases which are not related to small quantity, wherein fine was not, they were imprisoned in fact for quite some this thing. But this is the prescribed punishments, okay? And there are other things in relation to transport, illegally disposing of opium, some external dealings in NDP and narcotic drugs or psychotropics, allowing, as I told, if you give your house to be used for committing an offense related to drugs, if you finance anything related to drugs, unable to maintain an account of what is being grown if he has a license, or if he grows more than what has been permitted. So all of these things, there are punishments which are very clearly mentioned. Okay, but we would, for us probably this would be more relevant, especially the first part of it. Okay, when we deal especially with student related issues and all that. So that needs to be very clearly remembered. Okay, yeah, so these are some of the popularly, abused drugs. Okay, and that is the small quantity and that is the commercial quantity. As you can see, ganja, small quantity is 1 kg. Commercial quantity up to 1 kg is small quantity. Anything between 1 to 20 kgs is intermediate quantity. Anything above 20 kgs is commercial quantity. You look at the other LSDs, amphetamine, charas, cocaine, as less as 2 grams, 2 milligrams. Right? So that is something that you need to know. This is an important slide to remember. Okay? What constitutes small quantities? If you come across somebody who is abusing LSD, right? So you need to know what is the small quantity, or if he has cocaine, what is the small quantity? So he said 2 grams of ganja. It is definitely a small quantity, right? So this is something that needs to be remembered. Okay. So anybody, if they want to just take this or something like that, it's you can take this. It's important to remember. Okay. Right. So NDPS, at the end of it all, NDPS, please remember, it is not only punitive, it is reformative also. That is something that needs to be remembered. Okay? And why do I say that it is reformative? Because there is an option in the NDPS Act. If a student or any, is caught with a small quantity, as I already said, this applies only to small quantity. Okay? There is an option given to him that he can go in for de-addiction. He can go in for de-addiction, and if it is certified that he is submitted and he's been subjected to de-addiction, then he need not be imprisoned. So that is one option which has been given in NDPS. So there is an element of reformation provided under law also. But it is again, there is debate when it comes to this also. See, most of the times what happens is, as he said, when he is using it for personal consumption, or if he is in a party, he may have used it as a recreational drug. He may not be an addict. He may not be an addict. He may be a user. there is a difference between being a user and being an addict, isn't it? But the Act doesn't differentiate between a user and an addict. So an addict also would need to go in for de-addiction. A user also would need to go in for de-addiction if he has to avoid imprisonment. So de-addicting a user is a little challenging, isn't it? So that is something which is being looked into, and I'm sure there will be some sort of changes which are incorporated, because again, as I said, the Act may not differentiate, but society definitely differentiates. If somebody is caught for the first time using drugs, he may have used it for the first time, or he may be using it not always. He's not an addict. He has just been using it, not addicted. Occasionally he uses. He is a user. But if such a person is caught, there is still a societal stigma attached to it. The society definitely differentiates between, even if you're a user or an addict, that stigma is always there. So there have been, and another important thing is, the first contact always happens with the police when it comes to users or addicts. So sometimes it can be a little challenging. So there are a lot of discussion happening about decriminalizing only usage, not addict. I mean, it's a difficult road ahead, but definitely these things are being looked into. Okay, but nevertheless, NDPS is punitive as well as reformative to a certain extent. Okay, but only once. As I said, if somebody is caught using drugs and is having a small quantity on him, immunity is given to him, a chance is given to him to get reformed, to undergo de-addiction without imprisoning him. Chance is given to him only once. If he is again caught second time, he is punished for the first as well as second. That is very clearly mentioned. Okay? So that is something that needs to be remembered. So as I said, there is immunity provided from conviction once, okay? Not always. Again, as I said, student police situation. Again, we come across it so many times. The first contact will invariably be with police, right? First contact will invariably be with police. So when that happens, even before trial, sometimes there may be some challenging times for the person. That is why it talks about decriminalizing usage and all of that happens. House searches, as he said, somebody came to his house and kept a bag of weed and all that. Sometimes when you, the premise may be, the house, the premises may be yours, but somebody else may have kept it. As Madam very rightly said, the demeanor of the person, the case investigation, all that will definitely help him come to a conclusion as to the weed not being his. But till that is over, it will be very sort of challenging. Okay? And one thing, what used to happen earlier was, as per the latest 2014 amendment, is suppose somebody finds, say, 100 bottles of cough syrup in somebody's house. Okay? Again, this was a real case scenario. If somebody finds 100 bottles of cough syrup in somebody's house, 100 ml bottles, cough syrups, 100 ml bottles. Okay? So the total quantity is how much? 100 bottles into 100 ml is 10,000 ml, which means what, 10 liters? Right? 10 liters is the quantity. 10 liters is more than small quantity when it comes to the particular substance. But earlier, what used to happen was, if 100 bottles of cough syrup were caught, in 100 ml of cough syrup, only 5 ml of codeine is there. Rest of the substance is not illegal. Only 5 ml of codeine is there. So 5 ml into 100 bottles, how much? 500 ml. It is only half liter. So there is a sky and earth difference. Half liter and 10 liters. So now the recent amendment makes it very clear that even if it is 5 ml of codeine, still the total quantity calculated will be 10 liters only. So that needs to be remembered. Sometimes we come across such situations. It goes into larger quantity. It does not remain small quantity anymore. Right? 5 ml of codeine is not calculated. The total quantity is calculated. So these situations sometimes we come across, it can be a little tricky. Okay? So some of the unique features of this act, in addition to what I've already mentioned, is what? Reversal of presumption of innocence. What is this? What is reversal of presumption of innocence? See, in any crime when you commit, the accused need not prove. The prosecution has to prove that he committed the crime. Right? But here, under this act, he will have to prove that he had not done it. That is not easy. That is not easy. Believe me, in only few other cases, this is there. One of them is sexual offenses cases, rape cases and all that. In such cases, not in all types of rape cases, in certain situations, there is reversal. If a girl goes and complains that I have been sexually assaulted, it is taken. They need not prove. The accused has to prove that he has not, and that is very, very difficult sometimes. So, not in all cases this is held by law. Reversal of presumption of innocence is a rarity, and this is one of the situations where it is reversed. So it is difficult to get away. It is difficult to prove. Okay, that is one of the unique features of this particular act. Police confession admissible as evidence. Police confession admissible as evidence. See, in any other case also, if you give a confession to police after having committed a crime, it cannot be used, police confession cannot be used as evidence in the court. It cannot be used. But in this situation, when drugs are concerned, under the NDPS Act, the government is empowered to appoint somebody called as special officers. And these special officers take confession from you, from the person who is caught. And these confessions, these special officers, what law has told is, these special officers are not police. Only police admission is not used as evidence, but confession given to these special officers can be used against you in the court of law. And that is a very, 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 very tricky situation, in fact. When it comes to practicality, it becomes very difficult. Where was this used? If you have been following news recently, it became a big issue. Where? Very recently, Riya Chakravarti case. This happened. So, immediately when this happened, the lawyers filed for retraction of confession so that it doesn't harm. So, NDPS, that's something which is something to be remembered, because that confession can be used, and confessions most of the times will reveal a lot of things. Special courts have been, under the NDPS Act, they have been formed to deal with cases. So what happens is, only NDPS cases will be dealt with in these cases, in these courts. Unlike other courts where lot of other things, other type of cases, murder, dacoity, robbery, theft, rape, and all those are this thing, no? Here only these type of cases will be dealt by a special judge also, okay, as per the NDPS Act. Stringent bail rules, very, very stringent bail rules. Okay, sometimes students get away when they are caught by the police, they get away easily sometimes, but if the police choose to, they can really make it very difficult for you, because these offenses are non-bailable. Non-bailable offences these are. And what do you mean by non-bailable? Non-bailable does not mean that you can not get bail at all. But unlike bailable offences, in bailable offences what happens? The arrest actually happens only on paper. As soon as you are arrested, you are released. Bail is granted is what is the notion. But in non-bailable offences, it does not mean that you cannot be released at all. But the police cannot release you then and there. They have to apply for a bail to the court or a magistrate, and he has to grant bail, and then you can be released. So what happens? You are conveniently caught on a Friday. 3 days. That is another of the issues. Okay? Until Monday, there won't be a judge, there won't be a magistrate. And then, once bail is, sometimes it can take weeks, it can take months to get bail. And what happens? After that, when you get bail, also, in normal cases, it is considered that can be given, the judge has to, it's his prerogative whether to grant bail or no, even after so many days also. It is not that it's an automatic bail. There are so many things looked into, okay? Especially in NDPS cases. It's not like normal cases, wherein if you grant bail, will he run away, will he influence witnesses? These are not the only things that are looked into. Many more other things also are looked into in NDPS before granting bail. So that is why stringent, very stringent the bail rules are. It is not very easy when it comes to NDPS. Once NDPS is stamped, it's not very easy to get out of this, okay? Especially if it does not involve small quantity. Of course, there are some safeguards. I won't go into the detail. When there are stringent rules, there are some safeguards also. There has to be a proper investigation. There has to be proper intimation. There has to be a proper memo formed of the contraband seized. All these procedural formalities have to be pakka. Only then it will be. These safeguards are there. I don't deny it. House search, I've already mentioned. In house search, it is presumed that it is your this thing unless the investigation further says that somebody else has placed it in your house or whatever it is. Till then, it is presumed that it is your house, so whatever is found there is yours. Okay? So yeah, I've again told you, what about weed? That is something which many people ask. I've just had a small joint. I've just had a little bit of ganja. Is it illegal? Is it not illegal? Yes, before NDPS came, cannabis was to a certain extent legal, but NDPS has made it very clear that weed also is illegal, except for some of the things that have been mentioned in the definition, as I told you. Otherwise, it is definitely illegal, and even the smallest of joints is also illegal. Illegality is not, there's no doubt about it, all right? So many people ask, is ganja illegal? Is weed illegal? I had only one this thing. What about it? How can I, So that is something which is clear. So that's some of the things about the NDPS. Regarding some other drugs of abuse, some of the ending slides, any other drug, any other criminal offences. See, legality is not only about NDPS, there are some IPC sections as well when it comes to law. What about any criminal offences done when you are under the influence of a drug? What do you think? If I take a drug and murder somebody, this is not related to NDPS. NDPS has ended there, okay? I mentioned some of the drugs that have been mentioned under NDPS, the offences and the punishment, plus some of the unique features of NDPS. So that's relevant and that's enough for the audience. When it comes to other things related to IPC, what is your opinion? If somebody takes a drug or commonly alcohol and murders somebody, is he liable? Has to be, isn't it? How many say he is liable? Raise your hand. Let's see. How many say he is not liable? Wow. There is one person in the hall who says is not liable. Yes, sir. I think Sir has a point there. That is why there are sections. When it comes to section 85 IPC, when it comes to section 86 IPC, where there are a lot of conditions to fulfill these things. When you go into the explanation of these sections, you will realize. But generally, what the section says is, it's not an offense if the thing has been given to you without your knowledge. It's not an offense if it has been given to you without your knowledge. Unknowingly you have done it. Okay? The madam is a little confused. I can see, we have developed the technique of understanding people's emotions only by looking at the eyes now. From 1.5 years of COVID. It used to become very difficult in the early phases. We never used to realize what they are tending to say. But now we have become used to it. We are launching that forensic app very recently. Joking. So, I think madam, she was very confused when I said, it is confusing, I understand. But law says that if you do not know that you have, without your knowledge, if you have this thing and you have done something, it will not be counted as that particular offense for which you are charged. Okay? But voluntary intoxication, if I want to kill somebody, I'll go and do it. That is not excusable. That 86 very clearly says. I cannot consume alcohol and go and kill somebody and say that I have drunk. Isn't it? There have been cases wherein the plea or the defense of drunkenness has been raised. There are 3 pleas which always come up in a case. One is drunkenness, one is mental incapacity, mental health, and the third one is, what is that third one? Especially in rape cases again. Impotence. Okay? Never will a man in his lifetime confess to anybody that he is impotent. Never. Even if the man is impotent, he will never say that he is impotent. But in her case of rape, we always see the first defense that the man says is, I am impotent, because he wants to get away from that case. So impotence, mental incapacity and drunkenness are 3 important defenses which are put forth many a time. For many cases we come across that. We have to certify and all that. Okay? So that is something that needs to be remembered when it comes to criminal offenses and drugs of abuse. There are a lot of other conditions. The section 85, 86 are one whole chapter, in fact, if you discuss it. But this is a gist of it. Okay? When it comes to criminal offenses and drug abuse, be it any drug. Alright? Laws related to alcohol, anything you feel is laws related to alcohol, anything is there? Alcohol causes most of the problems, especially when that's what I was trying to tell in the initial phase. I'll put some slides on alcohol as well, because alcohol is probably one of the most commonly implicated substances when we, as a forensic expert, I see, when it comes to accidents, when it comes to crimes, more than 95% of the cases are invariably related to alcohol. That is something which is very scary but true. And most of the problems are caused, especially in that particular range of say 25 milligram percent to about 150 milligram percent, that 2 pegs, 3 pegs range, when the blood alcohol concentration is between 25 to 150 milligram percent. After 150 milligram percent, he is knocked off, or he gets out everything and his blood alcohol levels then go down. But in that phase, in that range, this is the range when most of the problems happen. Because it is that range when your muscle coordination is gone for a toss, your reaction time is increased, You think that you're reacting fast, but in reality you're reacting slow. And that is a major cause of what? Accidents, absolutely. You think that you have applied the brake on time, but you have not applied, sorry. Or instead of the brake, you press the accelerator. There is total, okay, just generally speaking, do you think alcohol is a stimulant or a depressant? Generally speaking. Huh? Good. Again, same, that's what madam said, depends on the dose. But technically, when it comes to the mechanism of action, if you look at it, it is actually a depressant. It depresses the depression centers. It inhibits the inhibitory centers. Minus minus is always plus. Why do you think, have you ever sat on a table where there are 4 people who are consuming alcohol? If you have the 5th one and if you are a teetotaler, you are gone. Have you ever been in such a situation? It's very, very difficult. You have to say yes to everybody. Because everybody has their own story to tell. And that is because there is no inhibition. The inhibition is lost. Inhibiting of the inhibitory centers leads to loss of inhibitions, which appears as stimulation. It's actually the loss of inhibition. Right? So all these things are, of course, it depends from person to person, it may differ. Okay? I may get knocked out with 25 milligram percent, he may get knocked out with 100 milligram percent. Again depends. Okay, just again another small query. If a man and a woman drink equal amounts of alcohol, who do you think will be more, under the influence of alcohol? General query, general question. Now, we come across such situations also. Okay, very, very commonly in fact. Women? A man and a woman both have had 90 ml of vodka. Okay? Who will be more under the influence of alcohol? Who will be more, whatever you call it, high or tipsy or whatever? Who? Shetre, dada anpar. Guttiji. Huh? Woman? Sure? Sure? Everybody says woman? Oh, see. Sir has a point there. A round of applause to sir. Depends on the capacity, he says. Yes, that is definitely there. That cannot be ruled out. Especially if the person is drinking from quite some time, there tends to develop what is called as tolerance. And that just changes everything, believe me. But technically speaking, if both have equal amount of tolerance, the lady will be more under the influence of alcohol because of nature, because of the metabolism of alcohol, the pharmacokinetics of alcohol. The fat compartment, the vascular compartment, it diffuses more into the water compartment. The water compartment is lesser in females, so more of it stays in the blood, whereas in males more of it goes out of blood for the same amount of alcohol, isn't it? So again, it depends from person to person. But this is the range basically between say 25 to 150 milligram percent, wherein a lot of wrong things can happen. Like this, right? Yeah. So that is something to be remembered. So technically, to overcome this range, why am I talking about this range? There is a reason why I am talking about this range. Not just to say that somebody looks pretty when you know, there's a reason. And what is the reason? Have you ever been caught by the police on a Saturday evening or somewhere down the road when you're driving your car or your two-wheeler, not for the helmet? What do the police do when you drive, when they want to catch you on a Saturday evening especially? What do they do? Huh? See, Upendra Naik knows it very well. I in fact objected a couple of times. Please object sometimes if they don't change that nib. That sometimes the same thing, especially during now COVID times, they have a little. What is that? Breathalyzers. That works on the principle that beyond a certain range, it becomes difficult to drive. And what is the legally permissible limit to drive under the influence of alcohol in India? Any idea? Anybody? It is different in different countries. In India, it is stipulated as per the section 185 of the Indian Motor Vehicles Act. What is it? How much? Any idea? Now they put no and they tell you. Have you ever cross-checked? Have you ever asked him to show the reading? %30 milligram is the legal limit. Okay? 30 milligram %. 2 pegs will be more than that, don't worry. So 30 milligrams is the legal statutory limit as per the Indian Motor Vehicles Act. That's something you need to remember. So I just wanted to make a passing remark, okay, about drunkenness and also the road traffic legislations that exist when it comes to alcohol abuse or any other. Of course, there are other tobacco, smoking related laws and all. I won't go into the details of that. I just thought I'll make a passing remark because there are a lot of things which ban advertisements both on social media as well as TV or whatever it is. You're not supposed to smoke in public and all that. Not very relevant. I just thought of putting across what is more relevant to you guys. So this is the gist of all the legalities of alcohol and other drugs of abuse. Okay, so ultimately, please remember, before I end it off, I would like to say, please make sure as trainers, we have to take away the best of what is given here and make sure we make a difference. Please make sure that the ones who need to decide are the students or the people that we would be trying to. There are other aspects related to counseling and all that, which I had spoken to ma'am, because it becomes too much legal aspects when related to counseling. What will you do when you come across a certain issue when you're counseling somebody? If you come to know about crime when you are counseling somebody, when you come across somebody who has something in his possession when you're counseling somebody, what are the legal scenario? What are the legalities associated? That is again a whole thing in itself. Legal aspects of counseling. I did not go into the depth of all of that. We'll probably have a discussion about it some other time. It's another beautiful topic for discussion actually. So yes, please encourage them to keep the door closed to drugs. There are a lot of other things to do in life. There's nothing cool about drugs. There are a lot of things. There are umpteen things like music. There is sports, isn't it? Sports is in fact one of the very, very important things that helps your mind stay away from all of this. Encourage whoever you come across to participate in such activities. And take your best shot at life. That's all I can say. Because it's not the end, it's a dead end. Okay? Thank you. Thanks so much. I can take any queries if there are, or you can mail me or whatever, no problem.
Thank you, sir. Now it's a time for queries. If anyone having any queries, you can ask with the sir.
Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
No medicinal.
Everything has medicinal uses. Everything, that is why even cannabis also, there is a license that can be obtained. We have an MOU with a company called Bohico in Mumbai. It's called Bohico, Bombay Hemp Company. Hemp is another word for cannabis actually. So they prepare medicinal cannabis. It is used in the treatment of pain relief in terminal last stage cancer. Some of the products. Not entirely legalized as of now, but Western countries are rampantly using it and some of the products are being used. Medicinal cannabis is recognized. They have, see madam, everything has a pro and a con. Everything has its own uses, benefits and there is a bane to everything also, they say. Everything needs to be licensed. See, we had a situation where one person had started growing it in his house, in a room, in fact. See, that is not, you got it. An appropriate authority have to license these things. But of course, there are places where a lot of these things grow rampantly. There are places. So, technically, it is illegal if somebody grows it by themselves. If you look at the northeastern areas, for example, have you visited our Sikkim campus or anybody? No. If you look at those areas, cannabis just grows freely by the roadside. You get what I'm saying? If somebody starts cultivating it illegally, that becomes illegal. Okay? Yeah, poppy also. Poppy also. You are talking about khaskhas, the paisa. See, that's what I said. When it comes to extracted elements from poppy, it is derived from that, but doesn't mean that it is under the NDPS Act. Like the seed and the leaves are not there. So it's like that. The intoxicating, or the active principles would not be there in that. But little bit, we feel sleepy or whatever we say once we do that. Otherwise, all the ladies would have been behind bars by now. Husbands would have been happier. Huh? Yes, sir.
If that cannabis grows in our land unknowingly, how to come out of it if somebody come and catch?
No, it is better if cannabis grows unknowingly. That's what I said. It's sometimes wild varieties can grow. Just make sure that intimation is given. No, leave it. Leave it. If it is not in your land, if it is in your land, it is better to inform and take it off. If you, no, you have not planted it. It has grown by itself. So remove it and either dispose it off. That is the best solution. Otherwise, if it grows as a wild variety and then you will be for cultivation, there has to be a proper license obtained for cultivation. If it is in your land, it is better to get rid of it. Oh, you don't know what it is. Now you know, no? That is why this class was there. No, cannabis is very clear. If you have a suspicion, call me or Nakul, we'll help you. No, cannabis it's a multipinnate leaf which is very characteristic. It's a multipinnate leaf which is very characteristic. Cannabis cannot be mistaken. But if you have any doubts about anything growing wildly in your thing, it will not grow that easily here. So, if anything like that is there, it's better to inform or get rid of it. If you are found in possession, it may be a problem.
Whether as a concept institution, whether they have to handle it alone or whether...
Who? If your student is caught from your institution, yeah.
Whether they have to battle it on their own or whether institution has to take some...
The strong lady is here. I think most of the cases which we have come across till now, Student Affairs has been involved in whatever support they can provide to the students. So, definitely they would require support. There is no doubt about it. No, as I said, when we see so much of this thing happening with students, they are oblivious to the circumstances. They do not know what lies ahead of them. They really do not know what is to be done. I am telling you, they do not know what is an FIR. How will they know? We can't expect them to know. They do not know anything. They are lost. They would require support. There is no doubt about it. That is why so many support systems are there. It would be right to support. Of course, then as Madam said, parents will be there who will be battling it out with their lawyers. Their lawyers will come to the picture. It will take some time. Sir.
So you mentioned the punishment for the possession of small quantity.
Yeah.
Either money or imprisonment or 10,000.
Yeah.
So how that is decided? Because generally people prefer the 10,000 fine and
Yeah.
How that is
No, most of the times the circumstances will be looked at. See, it is said small quantity. Most of the small quantities are disposed, as you said, by fine. Okay, imprisonment is a rarity in small quantity. But if the person, even if it's a small quantity, if the person has been peddling, if the person is a source of trouble to, say, institutions like these, if suppose somebody is coming from outside, he may be having a small quantity, but he may be giving that small quantity to 100 students. You get what I'm saying? There is a difference between him and a person, a student, who is consuming a small quantity and has 2 grams of cannabis with him. Circumstances will be looked at. Especially if you are a student, you will invariably be let off with the fine. And of course, they will ask you to go in for some sort of rehabilitation and not to repeat it again and all of that. All that. A student tag really helps you in the court. That way it is reformative. That is why that or, only with small quantity, or is there, only with that. It's not there with any other quantity at all. Thank you. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Vinod C. Nayak, while his session on legal and ethical issues on drug abuse, particularly explained about various kinds of drugs and its ill effects, laws related to substance abuse, criminal offences and drugs of abuse, legal committees which deals about drug abuse. Thank you so much, sir, for your immense valuable knowledge to us. Sir, even though it was a post-lunch session, everyone was attentive, and particularly while you were mentioning about the punishment-related matters, everyone was alert. Thank you so much, sir. Now I request our director, Dr. Geeta Maya, to hand over a memento to sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.